Welcome back. Thanks for watching. I really do appreciate it. And as always, like, share, and subscribe. I'm putting an LS-based engine in this buggy. Now, on the accessory drives, I need a water pump, an alternator, and a hydraulic or power steering pump. That's about it. Not a lot of other accessories. I'm not doing air conditioning, obviously. The downside is I have to move stuff around. Changing the configuration on my accessory drives on the front of the engine I'm doing for a couple of reasons. First of all, if I were using factory type pumps or factory replacement style pumps from PSC or something like that, I could probably get away with using an original truck style bracket on the driver's side, provided I had enough clearance vertically for the alternator. But I've elected to do something a little bit different. I am going to go with this particular pump from PSC. Now this pump is called a P pump. It is a very high volume, very high pressure pump. It requires using an external regulator. It's also recommended to use an anti-kickback valve. Now the reason I wanted to try to go with a P pump, and I don't know if this will work, I'm going to give it a shot. On these rear steer buggies, when you're turning your front wheels and your rear at the same time, it will work okay if you're driving down a dirt road or under very light load. However, if you are up on something and you are bound up and trying to turn both at once, your pump will either do the front or the rear, but never both at the same time, from what I understand anyway. Well, with this P pump, what I am going to try to accomplish is to be able to use both the front and rear at the same time under not a full load, but at least some load. It might get me out of trouble. It might get me in trouble. I'm not quite sure with that. So to start with, I need to build a bracket that the P pump mounts to. And I'm starting with some flat plate drilled to the configuration of the head that will mount to the back of the pump. Before I do that, I have to move the alternator from the right side, or from the left side to the right side, from the driver's to the passenger side. That's an easy one. ICT makes bracket assemblies. They come with bolts, bushings, spacers, all the instructions to relocate that alternator to the right side. That's the easy button. I'll take that all day long. These things are a little over $100. Worth it not to have to do all the brain damage and all the hardware that you're going to need. I've been debating on keeping the truck water pump or not, but I think if I did some research right, the 2010 through 17 Camaro has the same offset for the pulley. If not, they do make a spacer. But I decided I definitely want to do the Camaro style water pump because the neck comes out in a better place. And I really try to do things to where I can buy off the shelf. Off the shelf means if you're somewhere, you can figure out how to fix it without excessive amounts of fabrication and things like that. Once I got the water pump off, I took that plate I cut, mounted the power steering pump to it, started making some spacers and shims to get it lined up correctly with the lower pulley. At that point, then I finished cleaning off the gasket surface for the water pump and getting ready to install the water pump. I did happen to buy a new water pump bolt kit as well. Just thought it might be a little better to work with. All right, if you can look right here, here's crank pulley, water pump pulley. They line up absolutely perfect. Now I'm going to finish setting up the power steering pump, make sure it aligns. Last one will be the alternator bracket. And I'm just using an ICT bracket for that, but this power steering, since I'm using this P pump, I need to make the bracket for it. So next, oh yeah, it's easier to put the thermostat housing on before you put the water pump in, just so it cleared this nipple. It's kind of tight there, but it'll work. All right, you've probably seen this before when I was working on the Jimmy's buggy. I need a power steering bracket, so I've got a triangle that bolts to the head. It's rough cut still, I haven't rounded any edges off. I wanted to get the plate right. And then I've got the pump I'm gonna use without the pulley on it. And I will mount that here after I put the pulley on, and then I will figure out the spacing I need to get the belt lined up. Okay, water pump alignment's good. Alternator line's right up. Now I gotta make the pulley line up. So, the trick to this, bolting the pump here, then I have to come up with spacer distance in order to attain the correct distance from the block to the pulley so that the power steering pulley lines up. Now I mounted this with a pulley on it and got a really good straight reading, and I measured the distance for some spacers. Now, you could always go down to your local metal shop and have them just cut a piece of heavy wall tube that's yay thick at the desired distance, and you're done. I got lucky. I've got a friend who happens to be a semi-retired machinist, so I sent him a specification, 3/8 hole, 1/4 inch wall, and the exact distance I needed measured here. And he machined a few of these spacers for me. So now that I have these spacers, I will loosely bolt everything together and see where I line up. Well, this plate worked really good to get my spacing set up, but it's really not the right shape. I gotta kind of make a little adjustment. So I've got some other scrap pieces. I'm going to modify it a little bit. That's kind of the risk when you're doing kind of winging it stuff. Next, I am going to spot weld these dowels on, I guess you would call them, and then pull everything back apart so I can finish welding this bracket and permanently mount it. Doing these ICT billets, one thing you might want to keep in mind, if you don't have a long 6mm Allen, you may want to put this head bracket on before you put the water pump on. It's really tight between the water pump and the bracket. And you will have to at least take the bolts back out of the water pump and use the longer bolts with the spacers that hold the bracket. Down here is where the turnbuckle goes, which will be my adjustment. So I think that will work. I'm not going to tighten these all the way if I still have to put the alternator in, and I want to have some room to move that out. The next part to install is the turnbuckle, and it's got a spacer, and you got to pull the bolt out, and it kind of an extra hand and a couple extra fingers would come in handy, but it does line up nice. All right, now I'm just going to tighten everything up. This bolt here that mounts to the original bracketing system, you definitely don't want to forget that. That way all of the load is not being supported by the water pump bolts. It separates the load out. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see the alternator lines up absolutely perfect with the water pump, and that lines up exactly perfect with the power steering. Now the belt will go around here under the water pump, over the power steering, under the crank, and back up the alternator, and all of my hoses will clear that way too. Now that I got all my pulleys and brackets on, I need to figure out what size belt. So I take a piece of webbing, or in this case, I'm using a tie-down strap. Going from fixed point around everything, and then I'll measure it. So I need a belt that's that long. All right, well, I came up with 67.5. Got my turnbuckle fairly tight, so I'm going to go probably 68.5, close as I get to there. There's a little better look at everything fits. Nice tucked in. Now that I got the power steering pump set where I wanted, I did have to fill a hole, re-drill it in a little different position, made it a little better angle, but these are machined in the correct spot, so I'm going to weld these to this bracket. But one of the things that worries me is if this bracket starts flexing, because the pump's torquing on it. So I think I'm going to run a couple of little gussets just to keep this unit from flexing. Just a side note, you want to tack your spacers in with pump and everything bolted in. That way you know they're straight and aligned and will fit. I think that'll take all the flex out of that bracket, keep it straight. I'm kind of paranoid on some of this stuff because your hydraulics are so much of how this buggy operates. Both ends steering is completely hydraulic, no mechanical link at all. Painted up and ready for install. I'm down here messing with stuff. I should also mention that I put a belt in. It fits just perfect. Hopefully you can see that okay. That belt is just straight as an arrow. My spacer and dowels work out just fine. I put my valves on hand tight, and it just clears everything beautifully in here. This is a 68.5 inch belt. Got good surface area on the water pump, up to the alternator, back down to the water or to the power steering pump. Now, the only thing left to do here, when I run my upper radiator hose down, I'm going to have a break in that hose for the steam port, and then it should be good. On this particular setup, I'm able to run a horseshoe heater hose. Now, if you remember that other buggy I did, I pulled these fittings out and tapped them and plugged them. But for the sake of easy replacement, if I am out somewhere, right now I don't have to make any changes to this water pump. I can go buy a Camaro water pump right off the shelf for a 10 to 17, bolt it in, hook the hoses and belts up, and I'm done. Well, hopefully this was somewhat informative, because I know that just rock buggies aren't the only thing doing LS accessory drive reconfigurations. There's a lot of this stuff going on out there. LS is a pretty popular conversion even in the hot rod world. For those rock crawler guys though, I have a very similar configuration on that Jimmy's buggy that I did the build out on, and he has now run that many times with this belt configuration, and it works just perfect. It doesn't run hot, gets good charging, pump works good. I'm using a little bit higher volume pump than he is, and a little different configuration on the water pump. The truck water pump, the neck comes out up here. This, for my application, is a better configuration. So anyway, thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Please like, share, subscribe, and more to come. This a couple months ago. It's only had it out on 2 trips. Still kind of learning how to use it. It's definitely beautiful. Yeah, you'll go up now. It's in the corner. Harder left. There you go. That's plenty. Well, if your differential has to go on the other side of that rock. So his front's going to drop down. No, I'd keep staying passenger hard. It feels level, but your right rear is pretty precarious, so.
It was way better than it did 2 minutes ago.
Yeah. So.
Wait a second, it's gonna feel that way again.
His wife is such a sweetheart. He's got rear steer too. He can always move his rear end around.
I think this is probably an obstacle that you don't want to use your rear steer on.
It doesn't seem to be an advantage here, but now it'll start sliding the nose around and it'll come right up. Perfect. Hot usually goes down the V here too. That's what I did, and that's the only way I got my rear end to come up. It'll climb it now though. Yep. Catch your rock slider and pivot you around.
I don't have rock sliders, I got boat sliders.
Well, it'll catch those. It will pivot you around though. Go the other way. Oh, never mind.
Watch the steer. Yeah. It's a sweet little buggy. Watch this, it's pretty cool. Based on it. Arrow Utah. That guy named Thomas Michael. Never go down there.
That's one of Tom's?
Tom, that's the rock.
Way easier. Way.
Yeah, it's going the other way. You were right, like that.
I know, I felt, I was like, oh, good.
Nice. Well done.
Valve spring will flow.
Yeah, and the nice part about the LS valve springs is they're a honeycomb spring. So even if you break one, it doesn't launch the valve down. It'll hold the valve up
Well, yes and no.
fairly. Better than the
I
old
had one
springs.
come in the work that happened. Valve spring broke, and the piston hit it, and it broke off, got stuck in the head, ruined the motor.
Oh yeah. Smooth, smooth. Nice. All right. That's a better line. What's come up? That's a cool line. Your right or your left tire right on that rock and follow the ridge down. Looks like a one-shot line right there.
Almost.
It's climbing.
Hard right.
Keep it right, hard right. One shot line, nice. What's that? Thanks.
I got all of it other than the first row.
Yeah, I don't know if you're better off going high right or high left to start with. That looks kind of nice there. That looks good.
Until it doesn't.
Yeah, that happens so quick here.
It does.
There you go. Just a little. That looks good. Okay, got about a foot and it'll start climbing on the left.
Middle straight, you're on your front dip.
There you go. Little driver, it's gonna climb right out. Perfect. Like that. That's a nice line right there. A little back. All right, you're on it now. Little driver. Driver. There you go. Nice. Driver, if you can.
Slowly. Where am I going? There you go, right like that.
Now just go forward. It's pointing at the right place.